You wake up at 6:52 on a Monday morning without an alarm, and the first thing you do is nothing. That's the whole event. You lie there in the gray light and listen to the neighborhood leave, car doors, engines, Mr. Patterson's diesel truck 2 houses down, the whole street draining toward the highway, and you stay. Coffee, window. A phone that buzzes once at 7:15, a deposit notification. $63 arrived while you were asleep. Nobody sent it as a favor. Nothing was sold. You own things, and the things pay rent. There is a number that makes this morning possible. It's a real number, smaller than people fear, bigger than people hope. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly what it is and exactly how you got to it. But the number means nothing without the years underneath it, so start where you actually started, at a kitchen table, at 29, with a calculator and a question you'd never once heard another adult ask out loud. Not, how do I get rich? A different question, smaller and much more dangerous. What does my life actually cost? You'd never known. Nobody you knew. You sat down that night and dragged 3 months of statements into the light. Every charge, every subscription, every forgotten $12.99, and did the accounting most people spend their whole lives avoiding. The answer, for you, for a decent and unglamorous life, rent, food, car, insurance, phone, some fun, an honest cushion for the stuff that breaks, came to about $3,800 a month, $45,600 a year. Call it 46. And then the second calculation, the one that rearranged your entire future in about 90 seconds. You'd read about it on your phone at lunch, an old piece of retirement research from the 90s that studied what happens to a portfolio when you pull a fixed percentage out of it every year through booms, crashes, everything the market has ever done. The finding, sanded down to one sentence: a portfolio of stocks and bonds has historically survived people withdrawing about 4% of it a year, adjusted for inflation, across nearly every 30-year stretch on record. 4%. Which means the question flips. If your life costs $46,000 a year, then the number that pays for it forever is $46,000 times 25. $1,150,000. You remember staring at it on the calculator. It was a ridiculous number. You had $19,000 and a Hyundai. But here's what was different about that night, and why it counts as the beginning. For the first time, the thing everyone calls someday had a price tag. Not a mood, not a vibe. A number, sitting there, checkable. And a number, unlike a dream, can be walked toward. So you walked. And the walking itself deserves one honest paragraph, because the internet has ruined it with montages. There was no genius. You made decent money. $68,000 at the start, climbing to just over $100 by the end, and you kept your life at the $46,000 shape you'd priced at the kitchen table, and everything above that line went into the same 3 boring index funds on the 2nd of every month for 12 years. Savings rate is the entire engine. Everything else is decoration. Some years you banked $20,000. The later years, closer to $50,000. You took vacations, real ones, cheap flight ones. You went to the weddings. You were not a monk. You were just a man whose lifestyle stopped inflating in his early 30s while his income kept climbing, and that widening gap, that scissors opening, cut the whole path. What matters more are the 3 discoveries you made on the way, because the number turned out to be the least interesting part of the story. Discovery 1, the number moves, and you're the one who moves it. 2 years in, running your own math every month now, you notice something the retirement research never advertised. Every $100 you permanently trimmed from your monthly life didn't just save you $100. It deleted $30,000 from the finish line. $100 a month is $1,200 a year times 25. 30 grand you no longer need to accumulate, ever. When you moved to a place $400 cheaper and genuinely didn't mind it, you erased $120,000 from your mountain in one weekend with a U-Haul. Meanwhile, your coworker Brian, same salary, financed a boat with a $540 monthly payment, and, though nobody at the marina mentioned it, added $160,000 to a finish line he doesn't know exists. You weren't just saving faster than Brian, you were racing toward a closer wall. Discovery 2. The middle years are silent, and the silence is the test. Year 6, you crossed 300,000, and nothing happened. No one knew. Your life looked identical from the sidewalk. There was one bad stretch, a real crash, the market down 30%, your account bleeding 6 figures on paper while the news used the word bloodbath daily, and you kept buying anyway, on schedule, on the 2nd of the month, jaw tight, because the research you trusted had already lived through worse than this. That stretch, you found out later, was where most people quit. It was also, mathematically, where most of your future fortune got purchased. The market was running a sale, and the only price of admission was not flinching for 18 months. You had one ritual that got you through it, and it's embarrassing enough to be worth sharing. On the bad weeks, you didn't look at the balance. You looked at the share count. The balance was a mood, down, red, screaming. The share count only ever went up every single month because you only ever bought. 412 shares, 430, 447. The news could do nothing to that number. You were a man collecting something, steadily, at a discount, and the collection didn't care what it was worth on a Tuesday. It only cared that you kept showing up on the 2nd of the month. So you did. Discovery 3, and this is the one nobody warned you about. The finish line gets quiet before you cross it. Around year 11, with the account in the high 900s, you realize the fear was already gone. Not mostly gone, gone. You sat through a brutal reorg at work, new management, stack rankings, hallway dread, and felt like a tourist. You started saying true things in meetings. Weirdly, they promoted you for it. The money hadn't even hit the number yet, and it was already doing its real job, which was never groceries. Its real job was spine. And then, on an April Tuesday in year 12, at 41 years old, a market upswing you had nothing to do with pushed the account across $1,150,000, the exact number from the kitchen table calculator, and you found out what crossing it actually feels like. It feels like nothing. That's the honest report. You were microwaving leftovers. You checked the phone, saw it, stood there while the microwave counted down, and thought, 12 years, and the moment itself fit inside a microwave beep. Because by then you'd figured out what the number really was. It was never a trophy. It was a permission slip. And permission slips don't feel like anything. They just sit in the drawer, changing what's possible. You worked one more year anyway. The classic move, one more year. Everyone does it. The fear has a long tail. And it's worth saying what finally ended the one more year loop, because it wasn't math. It was a funeral. A guy from your office, Tom, 58, 4 months from his own retirement date, the date he'd been narrating at the coffee machine for years, the cabin, the fishing, the whole speech. Heart attack on a Saturday, mowing his lawn. You sat in the 3rd row of that service doing the worst arithmetic of your life. Tom had traded 36 years for a someday, and someday had declined the trade. You gave notice the following spring. At 42, you stopped. The 2 weeks after you gave notice taught you more about money than the 12 years of saving did. Because you had to say something, and you kept it vague, taking some time, doing my own thing, and you got to watch, up close, what every person in that office did with the blank space. Your boss assumed a competitor and got weird for a day. Brian, boat payment Brian, decided out loud that you must have gotten an inheritance and told people that, kindly, because in Brian's arithmetic there was no other door out of the building. One of the younger guys, Dev, waited until the parking lot on your second to last day and asked you straight, how? No jealousy in it, just the question. And you stood there with your keys in your hand and gave him the whole thing, unedited. The only time you've ever said it out loud start to finish. The statements, the 25, the 2nd of the month, 12 years. It took 4 minutes. He was quiet for a second and then said the thing you still think about. He said, "That's it? Nobody ever just says that." And you told him the truth. Everybody's either selling something more complicated or embarrassed that theirs is the same 4 minutes. Dev started his transfers that Friday. He texts you every year on the anniversary of it. A screenshot, a number, nothing else. It's the best mail you get. Turns out the exit wasn't a secret. It was just a sentence nobody finishes out loud in a country that talks about money constantly and never once says the math. So now, the part everyone actually wants to know. What is it like on the other side of the number? Here is a true Tuesday, this Tuesday, no filter. The portfolio sits a little above 1.2 million now because it grew even while you started drawing from it. That's the part outsiders never believe, that you can be spending the money and getting richer in the same year, which is exactly what the 4% math is designed to do in decent markets. Your withdrawal is set up like a paycheck, $3,800 a month, landing on the first, because it turns out the psychology of a paycheck is worth keeping even when you're the employer. Dividends throw off about a third of it on their own, the $63 morning deposits, the quiet drumbeat, and the rest comes from selling tiny slivers of what has kept growing. What do you do all day? The question everyone asks, always a little nervously, like they're asking about a diagnosis. Monday, you rebuilt the fence gate with your father, who is 71 and narrates every project, and you have the time to hear every word of it now, which you are aware, in the way you're aware of your own pulse, is the actual wealth. Wednesday, you do the books for your sister's bakery, free, badly needed. Thursday mornings, you coach at the rec center. You work, is the truth. You work most days. You just stopped renting yourself out. What about health insurance? The question behind the question, the one that keeps more Americans in chairs than any mortgage. It's a real cost, and you refuse to lie about it. A marketplace plan, and because your taxable income is now modest, withdrawals aren't a salary, and you manage which accounts you pull from, the subsidized premium runs a few hundred a month, budgeted from day one, line item 4 on the kitchen table math. Unsexy. Handled. Most of the terror around it, you found, was fog. Nobody you knew had ever actually priced it. They just repeated the fear to each other in break rooms, forever. And the doubt? There's one honest sliver. Some October nights, when the market drops 4% in a week, the old animal in your chest sits up and asks if this is the time it's different. You've learned to answer it with the boring truth. The plan already assumes crashes. Crashes are in the math. The number was built out of a century that included a depression, wars, and inflation. You're not standing on luck. You're standing on the ugliest 100 years of data anyone could find. The animal lies back down. It always does. It's getting old. One more true thing, because this story gets told dishonestly everywhere else. The number is different for everyone, and that's not a disclaimer. It's the entire point. Your buddy Ray, who needs the lake boat and the Florida month and the good bourbon, priced his life honestly at $90,000 a year, which puts his number at $2.25 million, and he knows it, and he's fine with it, and he'll work till 60 for it, cheerfully. That's a legitimate trade. Your old boss, meanwhile, makes $400,000 a year and will never be done. Not because of the math, but because he's never once done the first calculation, so his finish line just recedes at exactly the speed of his raises. The number doesn't judge anybody's life. It just refuses to exist until you look at it. The prisons and the exits are all self-priced. Last month, your niece, 24, first real job, drowning in advice from the internet, asked you flat out how much a person needs to never work again. Everyone at the table got uncomfortable, the way Americans do, as if she'd asked something intimate. You just told her. Find what your life costs per year. Really costs. Statements, not guesses. Multiply it by 25. That's it. That's the whole secret the adults were keeping. Most of them just never did the first step. She did the math on her phone right there at the table. Her number came out lower than she expected, and you watched her face do the thing yours did at a kitchen table 13 years ago. That small, dangerous shift from someday to some date. Mr. Patterson's diesel starts at 7:05 every morning. The street drains toward the highway, and you're at the window with the coffee, $63 richer than you were at bedtime, living proof of the sentence you'd tell anyone who asked. The number is real. The number is 25 times your life. And the hardest part was never earning it. The hardest part was being the one person at the table willing to find out what it was.